remember Keith Earls came around the squad, and John Hayes and myself were having a chat, and we're saying this fella's, he's going to make it. He's not just going to make it as a provincial player, he's going to be an international. And obviously he had a wonderful international career as well, Keith Earls. So the four of them, you think, yes, they're going to be around. They're ready for that step up, and they're international players. Some people can stall a little bit and not go on to win 80 caps or 100 caps. Some might only win 20, whatever. Everybody's different, but the four that came in I think are players we're going to see a lot of in the next few years. For this squad, there will be a bit of talk about the age of the squad and the age profile and all the familiar faces that we're so used to seeing the last couple of years. But the argument is who should come in and start. Six Nations is a big tournament that you want to win.
It's funny, you make a good point there, because the last couple of Six Nations squad, I would come in to you and say, well, Alan, just before we go on air, I'm like, who's missing? And you'd sort of look and say, not too sure, as in the squad doesn't pick itself, but there's not many guys you say he definitely should be picked, or he definitely should be picked that's missed out.
Yeah. I think there's someone we saw a couple of weeks ago in Galway, James McNabney, and again I saw him from the 20s from Ulster. He's one of these guys, do you think he has the credentials to kick on? He's a big physical specimen, really good carrier, good acceleration. So he's someone to be excited about. Thomas Ahern is one that will come up a lot, particularly with Munster fans. And I think there's some people you hear saying, well, he's 25 now and he's not a young fella anymore. He's had a raft of a lot of difficult injuries in the last couple of years. Thomas Ahern was a full back right up to under 18s, I think. So he transitioned into the forwards, and he's 6'9", very athletic. And he's been unlucky, because I think the injury he got post-Christmas last year was an ankle injury, and it ruled him out for the rest of the season. And that was the kind of business end that where players step up and there's big games, and Munster were involved in that URC run right up to the semi-final. But I think he's a player that's unlucky that he's not in this squad. He was in the development squad or numbers in November. So
what do you think's missing, or has it just been unlucky with injuries?
He's been very unlucky with injuries. I would think for him being so athletic and so good in carrying,
like Ryan Baird-esque?
Yeah, footballing ability, all that acceleration. I think probably the close in kind of physical stakes. Now, I've seen Thomas Ahern make lots of carries, even when he came on at the weekend against Saracens, and they're very effective. He's hard to stop because he's actually quite good at getting in that low position. He doesn't run upright for a big, tall man. He's quite good at dipping and weaving through little pockets and little gaps and winning a gain line. So maybe it's the physical stuff, I would say, around clear-outs, pulling down mauls, being a real kind of abrasive nuisance, a bit like Tyg Byrne is, Maro Itoje, the way they can slip through mauls and come up with a really big moment where they get their hands in there and they stop a team from scoring and they win a scrum for their team. Big moments in a game. So it's probably experience and getting a run at that. But I think with someone with his talent and athletic ability, I think I'd be a bit disappointed that he's not in there because, maybe I don't know the ins and outs of what his application's like in training.
What's he like in training? Yeah, exactly. We don't see him on the ground.
But you think if he's in the November group training with Ireland, why is he not in it now? Okay, they can argue and say, well, he hasn't played a lot, but Peter O'Mahony hasn't played in a couple of months. Conor Murray has one game played in a period of time as well. Now, sorry, Peter O'Mahony is a different kettle of fish in the sense of what he's done and what we know he can produce, even if he hasn't played for a while. But I'm just making an example. Thomas Ahern has been out for a little bit, but he's back recently, and I just think you saw the impact of the weekend. I'm surprised he's not in an Irish squad. Tom Farrell is someone else who's unlucky. Really pleased to see Cathal Ford from Connacht in there because he's in there as a development player, because I just think he has that footballing ability, that athleticism as well. He's a big man, left boot, a little bit like Jamie Osborne, but they're kind of unique players when you have that left
And
peg.
he's been very consistent the last
very
while,
good,
hasn't he?
yeah,
And good
very
as well.
Very, very good, and he's been good for the last couple of seasons with Connacht.
What about, you talked about the development players, Hugh Cooney, McNabney. You touched how good or how high his ceiling might be.
Yeah.
Ben Murphy as well.
Absolutely, Ben Murphy.
He probably...
He's
People
one,
would argue he should be in the actual squad, not the development squad. But a lot of those development players can get capped as well. People forget that.
Yeah, and if he gets in, you know, he'll be in Portugal, obviously training with him next week, and he can impress. But I think he's been a breath of fresh air, and I saw him first game against Connacht, Munster Connacht at the start in his season in URC. Superb. I think he scored 2 tries in that game, and he's a big talent and somebody who I think has a big future ahead of himself. He's very, very talented. Hugh Cooney, again, someone I've seen in the 20s, and we've seen him being in a few involvements with Leinster this year. Very good player as well. So
I've got the Ulster hat on now, Postlethwaite scratching his head.
Yeah, and
rightly so.
I think so. Postlethwaite is a big man. He's athletic, and we must remember, I think Jamie Osborne is in that centre position. You've got Bundy Aki, Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose and Jamie Osborne. They're the 4 centres. There's no Stuart McCluskey, he's injured, but all 3 are above 30, over 30. And is Gary Ringrose 30 yet? He might be 20, 29.
We'll give him 29.
But, okay, right,
yeah.
They're close to it, so they're not going to be around forever. And I think someone like Postlethwaite is a big specimen of a man. He's a really good player. But look, I don't know if they're completely limited, that these guys can't come in and out of an Irish training group. But look, you can't pick everybody. But I was never big into this. We've got to make a raft of changes in between World Cups, because I thought you picked the right player at the right time, and it's probably maybe a little bit of a narrow mindset, in a sense that I've always been of the opinion you have to win games, and every game Ireland wins. Maybe
but so are the coaches, clearly.
Yeah,
you know,
and
because there hasn't been a raft of changes.
Yeah, and the player pool is not huge. Like Fabien Galtier can bring in a number of guys, like in the summer there and everywhere, because they're guys who are playing to so many clubs, and we've seen the centre from Dax who's picked now in a French squad.
Noah Nene,
yeah, Noah Nene, very talented, excellent player, but they've 2 divisions essentially they can choose from. Like it's incredibly amount of players they can choose from. We don't have that luxury, but yeah, I understand in some ways that you know, going to try and win another 6 Nations, having England and France and Dublin historically, that's where the little glimmer of hope, it opens up a little bit more, because they're the 2 powerhouses coming to Dublin. Yeah, there's a couple there. I think I'm very excited for those development players, but there's 1 or 2 that's feeling like Tom Farrell. You think with Stuart McCluskey out of the picture, you think that would have been a great chance to bring Tom Farrell in. His form has been really good with Munster. Is he that player though? The argument is to say that you could put him out against England and France.
Do you think being over 30 nearly goes against him?
Yeah, it does. It does, for sure. You know, it's not one that's an horrendous decision, but I think he could have been rewarded to be even in the group there. But look, there's, again, going back to what we said at the start, there's no real surprises there. I think the concern, the front row situation, particularly around Loosehead, is something that, and Jack Boyle, he's uncapped, and both Leinster and Ireland see him as someone who's going to transition through, and I think he has the potential to do that. So he's the only uncapped player in the squad.